You boys be quiet down there!
Welcome back to PC-98 Paradise, the series where we take a close look at classic games for the NEC PC-98, the most popular Japanese PC series of the early 1990s. Today I'm going to be playing one of my all-time favorites on the PC-98, Metajo, a fun and challenging turn-based strategy game with a crazy story and awesome music. I first found this game about 20 years ago, when I got my first PC-98. At the time, this game was available as a free download, officially sanctioned by the creators of the game. The site is now offline, but if you still want to obtain the game this way, it's all backed up on the Internet Archive, including a hard drive image that will boot right up on a PC-98 emulator. But even though the game was available for free, I like it so much I've always wanted a physical copy of the game. When I managed to find one on an auction not long ago, hardly anyone else seemed interested in it. So this is one of those rare cases where a game is uncommon, but not in high demand. Probably again because it was available for free for so long. Anyway, let's dig right in. Inside, there's a survey card and the black and white manual. The front section has a long historical account of the world of the game, and throughout the manual there are a few cool little manga illustrations of the characters. The game itself is contained on 8 floppy disks. I think this is the first game I've covered on the channel which absolutely requires a hard drive. It can't be played from the floppy disks at all. To start the installer, we insert disk 1 and run install.bat. Oh cool, this installer has music. It's one of the BGMs from the camp screen in the game. Now I'm getting excited. The first thing it asks is if we want to make a boot disk. This game always ran fine in my usual DOS environment, so I'm going to decline to do this. Next, it asks the drive letter of the floppy drive I'm going to use for the installation, and I'll select my first 5-inch drive, which is currently drive D. And for the hard drive, I'll designate my main hard drive A, and stick with the default directory name, Metajo. Lastly, it asks if I want to make a batch file in the root directory of drive A to quickly start the game, which I'll go ahead and have it do. On this screen, I confirm all the settings and press any key to begin installation. The music at this point changes over to the Metajo theme from the opening of the game. Now I'm really excited. Everything is going along smoothly, copying over the data from the disks, until about 20 minutes in, when I need to insert the 8th and final disk. It's not recognizing the disk at all. Damn you, Murphy's Law! So I try reinserting it a couple times before thankfully it works and starts copying data. Ooh. But then partway through, it gets stuck and encounters a read error. I retry a couple of times, but it just won't get past this particular file. In desperation, I take out the cleaning disk and attempt to clean the drive in the middle of the installation. I have it read the cleaning disk a few times for good measure, but suddenly it declares the installation to be complete and says, "Please enjoy the world of Metajo." Trust me, I want to, but I'm pretty sure the installation isn't complete. I can't even start the game in this state. So first I tried copying the remaining files manually from disk 8, but no matter what I did, it seems most of the data on the disk is just corrupted. If this were the 90s, I might be out of luck, but luckily nowadays I have plenty of options. I could just manually copy the missing files from the hard drive image that was available for free online. But to make sure I don't miss anything, I eventually decide to just make a real 5-inch floppy using the disk image of disk 8 that was also available on the site, and do the whole installation over again. 20 minutes later, the new disk 8 works perfectly and installation is complete. Time to finally enjoy the world of Metajo. And to think, if I had just copied the pre-installed files from the hard drive image over to the PC-98 like I did in the old days, this could have all been done in less than 5 minutes. I just had to use my original floppies to install the game the old-fashioned way. Turns out my physical copy of Metajo isn't fully working, but I still love it anyway. So to start the game, we simply run the metajo.bat in the root directory. The opening starts off with a quote from a fictional scholar in the game. And then the title. Metajo is shorthand for the game's full name in the subtitle. Here's a rough English translation. There's a lot to unpack here, but metatopology is the name of the fictional technology in the game's world. The game characters are students at a high school of that technology. Next, you get a demo of a few randomly generated battle animations, which differ every time you watch the opening. Finally, the logo of the developers. Metajo began life as a doujin, or homebrew game by Doujin Circle R-Force Software, but was picked up by a software company called Anjin for a commercial release. From the main menu, we can start a new game, continue, or go to the options or music mode. In the options, you can make a lot of useful adjustments. For the difficulty, I'm going to stick with the default easier mode, since I've never actually managed to beat this game before. Hopefully we can change that this time. One thing in the options that I find fascinating is that you can change which sound channel handles the recorded sound samples. The PSG or even the beep channel is capable of outputting voices.
Game over. Game over.
But if you have a stereo FM soundboard, you're going to want to stick with PCM.
Game over.
Let's start a new game. Metajo is so simple to learn, I really don't think it needs a training stage, but it has one anyway. We get a quick rundown here of the move and attack commands. We're also shown how to click the coffee cup to take a break for one turn when the character is low on HP. There's also a special abilities icon and one to open the options menu, but let's not worry about those now. So on to the real game. We move our characters and use them to hack away at our opponents, hoping to randomly land as many hits as possible. The animation may not be as detailed as something like the Farmland Story series, but I find this even more fun to watch. It's just so satisfying to see and hear your hits landing on your opponent. And I also love the way the characters jump back when they level up. Sometimes rage attacks will randomly occur and ask you to mash the mouse button to avoid taking too much damage. This is one game where I'm glad to be using a modern junk USB mouse via an adapter, rather than an antique PC-98 mouse. There are always a ton of NPCs on the map to make the battles feel more large and epic. Since you have to watch them all, it's great that you can hold the right mouse button at any time to speed up the action. Eventually I just turned all the speed settings way up in the options menu. Surprisingly, no matter how high you turn up the speed, things can always go faster if you hold the right mouse button. In the background, we hear the main version of the Metajo theme, which we heard a different variation of in the opening. This is an unforgettable piece of awesome FM sound to get you pumped for battle. It's so good, it's easy to forget how great all the music in this game really is. It uses only the SSG and FM channels of the stereo FM soundboard for a really raw, old-school FM sound, and something about that gives the soundtrack a great character. It's one of my favorite PC-98 soundtracks, for sure.
I didn't know something could kick this much ass.
Metajo takes place in a fictional world where the extracurricular clubs at a high school are at war with one another, and when these girls get taken out, they freaking die. We know this because when they do, they cry for their mommies or say things like they don't want to die. Besides, the game literally calls it death. In the conditions for winning or losing the stage, one of the conditions for losing literally says the death of the protagonist. So these girls are playing for keeps.
Cool. That's unbelievable.
We take control of the astronomy club and our main protagonist, Mayumi Tanaka. Wow, that's such a basic name. I've probably known at least 2 or 3 people named Mayumi Tanaka in real life. In addition, we start with 2 other characters, Yui, the cute air-headed one who specializes in healing magic, and Noriko, a strong attacker who speaks in masculine-style Japanese. In addition, we have NPCs on our side who we can't control at all. They are complete cannon fodder who don't value their lives, and will often attack stronger enemies even when they have hardly any HP left. Hell, there's even a part in the story where enemy NPCs blow themselves up as a form of attack. They also tell their commander they don't want to die before they do it. Man, this game is dark. In general, the NPC characters don't have names, except for a few exceptions where the story demands it.
I understand. In death, a member of Project Mayhem has a name.
Anyway, your NPC pawns can be good for softening up the enemies before you take them out, but I hate it when they finish off the enemies themselves. In this game, you only get experience when you kill an enemy, so when the NPCs do it, it's a total waste. I'm pretty sure NPC experience doesn't carry through at all to the later stages. Hey, that one was mine. Whose side are you on, anyway? In order to prevent this from happening, you can hold the left mouse button to stop NPCs from dealing any damage. Make sure to do it before they finish off any enemies. This isn't an easy game, so you're going to want to try and level up the main characters as much as possible.
Stage clear.
On the camp menu between stages, you can spend the technical points, or TEP, that each of the characters have earned from attacking enemies. Characters can learn skill sets like attack, defense, or even swimming, and once a skill set has been purchased, that character will gradually learn individual abilities contained within that particular set. It's fun to see your characters learning new abilities after battle, giving you something to look forward to other than just level ups. Magic and attack skills are obviously useful, but swimming is also great since this game has a lot of water you need to move over, and it takes forever when your characters can't swim. So anyway, while some characters are naturally better suited for magic or attacking, the ability to choose skill sets allows for a ton of character customization.
How cool is this?
Speaking of characters, we eventually get 2 more playable members of the Astronomy Club. An archer named Takumi, and an attack magic user named Marie. Marie speaks a heavy version of Kyoto dialect. Most of the dialogue is silent, but throughout the game there's a line or two of voice dialogue sprinkled in here and there.
第一隊はこのまま進み天文部の動向を探れ。他の者は私と共にここで待機せよ。
The sound quality is obviously not the best, but they were dealing with limited floppy disk space and had to keep the sampling rate to a minimum. I'm grateful for any voices at all, since the Japanese in this game can be kind of difficult to read, or I think it is anyway. The game has a lot of nerdy inside jokes and winks to the audience, and yet at the same time the game takes itself absurdly seriously when it comes to the conflict and politics of its world. All this war talk can be hard to read. But here's a rough rundown of the plot. Mayumi and party have to travel to the main headquarters of the Astronomy Club. Apparently there are no motor vehicles in this world, so they make the long journey on foot. The headquarters is basically a castle fortress, and the club president is referred to as Her Highness. During the visit, one of the club's top generals named Yoshimi carries out a coup d'etat and forms the Neo-Astronomy Club. I guess I'll put a spoiler warning here, since the plot takes a number of unexpected twists and turns from here on. Is anyone watching going to actually play this game? After Mayumi and company return to their outpost of the Astronomy Club and have many battles with the Neo-Astronomy Club, they eventually return again to the main club headquarters and take it back from Yoshimi. They almost fail, but most of the Neo-Astronomy Club at the headquarters are destroyed by a topology cannon fired by the Biology Club. It turns out that the coup d'etat was actually just a plot to weaken the Astronomy Club, carried out by their old enemies, the Biology Club, who they've been at war with for over 1,000 years. This cliffhanger is actually where the original Doujin version of the game ends, but in the retail version we get the rest of the story. Next, we temporarily leave Mayumi and take control of 2 survivors of the Neo-Astronomy Club. Kotoeri is a short-tempered girl whose nickname is a shortened version of her surname and given names, Koto Erika, and Risa Risa is supposed to be a Brazilian exchange student who speaks messed up Kansai dialect. And there are actually a lot of characters in this game who speak various Kansai-based dialects, probably because R-Force Software was based in Osaka, and this game is apparently supposed to also take place in the Kansai region of this fictional Japan. For this portion of the game, everyone is after a document which proves the biology club's involvement in the coup d'etat. In one plot hole ceiling scene, a random character asks that if the biology club wants to keep this document secret, why don't they just destroy it? But the other character replies that it's coated in high satanic metal, so it can't be burned or torn. Well, they thought of everything, I guess. Kotoeri and Risa eventually join Mayumi's party, completing our roster of all 7 main characters. Together they obtain the aforementioned secret document and take it to the student council, proving to everyone the treachery of the biology club. We then make the long journey to the biology club's headquarters to take them out. One stage map near the end has a Stonehenge type area away from the battle. If you bring Mayumi all the way down there to the center of the circle, she will hear the voice of one of the developers. I am Pururun, the god of Shaminel, and my class is Colonel. God of Shaminel? Colonel? Mayumi, have you been watching Star Trek The Next Generation? Of course I know it's only being shown in some regions of Japan, like Kansai. Of course I'm watching it. It's super interesting. And have you bought a Sega Saturn? I will also accept a Victor Saturn or a High Saturn. And if Yamaha made a Saturn, I think it would be called a Yaturn, baby. How rude of you to even ask. Of course I bought one. Well then, I will reward you by raising you to the maximum level. I am the god of Shaminel, Pururun. He. Actually, I think the game is more fun if you don't get this, but it's a cool Easter egg nonetheless. Anyway, in the end, the Astronomy Club takes out the Biology Club president, bringing an end to what came to be known as the 1200-year conflict. The game has 8 different endings, of which I have seen 5. Additionally, though the game ends at stage 26, there are 4 alternate stages you can find by making different decisions, for a total of 30 stages. The same site where you could download the game also had a full walkthrough showing you how to find all the alternate stages and endings. The second part of the ending shows the final stats of all 7 of your characters and how many kills each of them got. It's also got a brief description of what happens to each character after the game, some of which differ depending on which ending you get. And the final part of the ending, of course, is the credits, which are usually in Japanese but are instead in English if you get any of the game's bad endings. Metajo was primarily developed by a very small team of people, and it shows. It was mostly the brainchild of Hirokazu Yokoyama and Hiromichi Terashima, both of whom unfortunately don't seem to have done much other work in the gaming industry. Likewise, the 4 music composers don't seem to have done many or possibly any game soundtracks besides Metajo. They did a phenomenal job though. The voices seem to have all been done by amateur actors, and that's not a bad thing at all. They all did a fine job bringing their characters to life. The most famous name that appears in the credits is Koji Yokota, who also worked at Telenet, Falcom, Enix, and Quintet, but since his name appears even in the credits for the Doujin version of the game, I'm skeptical that this isn't just a completely different person who happens to have the exact same name in kanji. But it could be him. It says he worked on map parts and map design, which is exactly what the famous Yokota specialized in. Sorry, I'm not sure. Information on this game is just so limited. After finishing the game, you can play sort of a new game plus, where you get to keep all your character's skill sets you bought in your previous playthrough. You start back on level 1 and still have to gradually relearn the actual techniques contained in those skill sets, but trust me, it makes sense if you play the game. Surprisingly, there is an English patch for Metajo, but it only translates the menus and names of the skills. The Korean patch, however, translates the entire game and story. And hell, there was an entire port of the game to MS-DOS in Korea. This version is visually a bit different, and was on a CD-ROM with an arranged CD soundtrack. The arrangements do sound rather MIDI-ish, however. The game also doesn't seem to have any voices. But Metajo began life as a doujin game. Wow, this is pretty rough. Almost all graphics were redone for the retail version, and in this one, rather than animating, the characters simply smash into each other. However, most of the music and sound effects in the game are actually the same. It's just missing the stereo FM arrangements, which were added in the retail version. This version uses the stereo soundboard 86 only for the PCM voice samples. It's also missing the awesome main Metajo theme. The old main theme here is a lot less catchy. This version had a different character designer, and some of the characters are almost unrecognizable. There are also illustrations between each of the stages here, but be warned, in true doujin form, some of them have nudity. The game's title is the same as the subtitle of the retail version, minus the special at the end. And interestingly, rather than Metajo, this version was called Fumejo for short. The game only has 10 stages and is missing most of the story. After playing through the whole thing, I can see some of the greatness that was to come later, but a lot of what makes the game addictive is still missing here, and the game balance leaves a lot to be desired. The Japanese Wikipedia page acts like this is the true first entry in the series, but I'd say skip it unless you're a hardcore fan. Definitely start with the full retail version of the game. But back in the world of full retail releases, Metajo also had a sequel. I've actually owned a physical copy of this one for decades, but have hardly played it. Definitely gotta change that in the near future. Metajo has an unforgettably bizarre world and story, and I think I kinda love it. And on top of that, it's an extremely fun and challenging turn-based strategy game. Unlike, for instance, the Farland Story series I've also covered on the channel, Metajo's system is complex and has a lot more going on. I do recall when I first played it decades ago, finding both the plot and gameplay to be a bit overwhelming somewhere about halfway through. But this time, after getting past the middle section, I found myself absolutely addicted to taking out as many enemies as possible in order to raise the levels of the main characters. After even playing all the way through a second loop on New Game Plus, it was clear to me that the designers really loved their game and played it thoroughly themselves until everything was adjusted exactly the way they wanted it. There's of course a screen at the end thanking you sincerely for playing their game all the way through. And I think it's precisely because they loved their game that they decided to make the game available for free less than a decade after it was released. The game was just too good to be left forgotten as an obscure gem for an obsolete system. Whether you choose to play it on a modern PC via an emulator, or on an actual vintage PC-98, Metajo deserves to be played. Thanks for watching this episode of PC-98 Paradise. I had a great time playing this one and making the video, and I thank everyone for their generous support, allowing me to keep making these. Thank you so much for contributing and for watching. This is your friend, Mr. Jakes for PC-98 Paradise, saying goodbye for now.